Yep, I got you now. We're good. Good.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So lovely to have you, Will. Thanks for joining me on my show, Moments with Masters, and you are the master of the day.
Thank you, Rajan.
Thank you so much. And before I know it's going to be a very deep dive in conversation with you. So before we take that deep dive, I have an introduction for my Indian audience. Let me introduce you. Dr. Will is a military veteran turned serial entrepreneur. As the founder of several successful companies, he has traveled the world to impact, inspire, and influence leaders at all levels. Consulted with hundreds of Fortune 500 companies, conducted over 1,200 presentations, and delivered keynotes and trainings in over 50 countries and 40 of the 50 states in the US. He has made civility, diversity, inclusion, and excellence a way of life. As a professional speaker and business coach, Dr. Will has been named a top speaker in America and named Business Person of the Year by community organizations 5 times. He's a respected global leader and author of over 50 books. Dr. Will has worked with organizations, associations, and governments in over 50 countries on 5 continents. As the founder of Genius Speakers Academy, he supports hundreds of speakers each year to build their brand, business, and bank account. His passion to see individuals excel and succeed in life and business is unmatched. He has been married to his wife, Dr. Christie, for 25 years. They have 2 children, Kara and Champ, and the family calls Phoenix, Mexico, and Saint Martin home. Well, there's a long list of accomplishments, and I think my list will be very short. America's #1 leadership life trainer, appointed an ambassador of World Civility. 2015 named the top speaker in America. 2016 named Business Leader of the Year. 2017 named Community Leader of the Year. 2017 again named Diversity Leader of the Year. 2018 Veteran Impact Business Award. 2020 Civility Business Person of the Year. And 2022 Phoenix Titan of the Industry 100 Top 100 CEOs. Well, here we have Dr. Will Moreland. Dr. Will, welcome to Moments with Masters. And, it's lovely to have you with me.
Well, I am honored to be here with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm ready to have a powerful conversation and support your audience, and maybe they take away one or two things.
Beautiful. Well, in all my conversations, I say that the first thing that I start my conversations with is that there is one side that the person, and there is the other side, the story that the person creates. So I am curious to know the who you are or who you have been and the story that you have created based on or connected to the who you were or and who you are being in your own words.
Well, thank you. So I'm originally from California. I grew up in a city that was known not to be very, very good. I was raised by a single mother. We were what I would like to say money challenged, right? We didn't have all the finer things in life, but I think we had the important things in life. My grandmother, she taught me faith. She taught me character. She taught me integrity. She taught me how to be a giver. And most importantly, she told me how to serve. And so, even though we didn't have a lot in life, she told me that serving and giving was going to be my pathway to prosperity. And so, I've tried to follow that motto over my years to be a server and to be a giver. As my bio said, I had an opportunity to join the United States military. And this gave me the opportunity to see the world and travel and develop as an individual and develop as a leader, and really ask myself, how do I want to live out life? When I'm coaching with my clients, we have this principle that we call living from your core. And CORE, CORE, is an acronym that stands for clarity, opportunities, relationships, and experiences. And so for anyone listening to me, if you want to maximize your life, you got to ask yourself, what am I clear about? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want people to experience me? And then once you get clear about that, Rajan, you want to start finding opportunities to do that. So maybe it's moving to India, maybe it's moving to the UK, maybe it's moving to America. If that's going to put you in the best position, you look for those opportunities. And then relationships. What are the most important relationships to you, and how are you showing up for those relationships? And then how do you want to experience this beautiful world? We have a beautiful world. It's about 200 countries, I believe, in this world, mixed up with amazing individuals. And for me, that's been the antithesis of my life, to live out from my core. And so that's a long story kind of condensed to where I am today, where I get to travel all around the world and meet amazing people like yourself and share a message of civility. I believe that as humanity, we are better together. And as we experience this world, we're all just trying to figure it out, right? We're all just trying to, we all see the world through different lenses. And so we have to kind of figure out, how do we all kind of play in the sandbox together? So that's my life, and that's how I show up in the world today.
Well, that was excellent and amazing, Will. But that was your side of the story. I'm not going to limit myself to that. I'm going to dig more into that, and I know there is a lot that is there which I want to uncover. But here's one thing, Will. Clarity is this word which confuses many, and I have experienced that clarity in most phases of life is not something, probably it precedes circumstances. It probably, most of the times, it's like you connect the dots, and when a clarity is something that emerges in the hindsight in certain cases. And then there are people who wouldn't want to start unless they have clarity, and use lack of clarity as an excuse to making to taking bold action, to taking that courageous action. And they wouldn't start for years. I had around 3 to 4 years in my life when I didn't start, and I was like, okay, let me have clarity, let me have clarity, let me have clarity, only then I'll start. But probably there were times when I didn't have clarity, but I took action, consistent action, and then probably clarity dawned, and I landed into a better place, a better phase of life, when I connected the dots. Okay, this clarity was a result of the action that I was taking, and yeah, there was a part of life when I didn't have vision, I didn't know what to do, but yeah. So how do you differentiate? How do you help people see clarity as, is it something that is like, you can't start without clarity, or is it, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, that's a great point. So when we talk about clarity, and when I talk about clarity, I'm not talking about having a full picture, right? We're never going to have a full picture. We really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can only speculate about what we want the future to be and what we want. But what I say about clarity is to ask yourself where you presently are, and ask yourself where you presently are. Do you feel like you're living full out, or do you feel like there could be more for you in life? That's clarity, to understand that, you know what, I'm not totally happy where I am. That's a clarity point. And that's where it may be. When I started out, I didn't know that I was going to end up being the individual I am today. So based upon my life, as I say, we were money challenged. We didn't have many other finer things. So for me, clarity was, you know what, when I become an adult, I don't want the simple things in life to be difficult. I don't want to have to worry about, if I'm buying groceries, I'm not going to be able to afford gas. If I get gas, maybe I may not be able to afford my light bill. For me, that was clarity. I knew what I did not want. I didn't know exactly everything I wanted because I didn't have enough exposure. I didn't even know what was available to me. I just knew that I didn't want to struggle in life. I just knew that I didn't want the day-to-day necessities of life to be this humongous obstacle. So for me, I didn't start with what I wanted. I started with what I didn't want. I knew if that meant just having a solid job, a foundation where I was getting paid nicely, that could take care of all of my bills, then for me, that was number one. But when I joined the military, I had the opportunity to live over in Europe. Well, this was the first time that I'd ever left my neighborhood. For the first 20 years of my life, I did not go more than 20 miles from my doorstep. So I lived a very limited life. I lived a very unexposed life. But when I got on that plane for the very first time, even that was a moment of clarity. Wait a minute. I could be in another state, another country in a matter of hours. That was clarity to me. That meant to me that, wait a minute, I could literally get to anywhere in the world from where I was right there. That had not been a concept to me. That had not been a concept for me. I grew up, my family didn't have a car. We used public transportation. So that limited you, right? It limits where you think you can go, because you say, well, if I'm going to take public transportation, I remember as a little kid, it would take me 2 hours on the bus to get to school. Now I'm on an airplane, and in 2 hours, I'm 4 to 5 different states away. That was fascinating to me. That same 2-hour block, in one block, it will get me to my school that wasn't that far away, but because of the bus system always stopping and things like that. But then I get into a plane, another mode of transportation, and now in that same 2 hours, I'm in a whole different state. That was fascinating to me. So when we talk about clarity, you're right. A lot of people, they get paralysis because they don't have it all figured out. They don't know the next step and the next step and the next step. But as you said, I believe that each step begins to reveal more and more and more. I'm sitting here with you. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. You're in India. My God, 30 years ago, I couldn't have imagined this.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have put this down on a piece of paper to say, I'm going to get interviewed by a man in India. I couldn't fathom that, right? And so anybody listening to us, think about you. I was reading a little bit about your story and the impact and the clarity moment you had back in 2009, and you went on that 21-day journey, and that 21-day journey began to provide clarity for you that you had never had before. And so we never know how clarity's going to happen, but it does happen through action. And because you took action to be committed to those 21 days,
exactly,
you now have a show where you're interviewing some of the most renowned individuals, some of the most renowned CEOs around the world. That's amazing. That's what clarity does for you if you're willing to take the step.
Perfect. Well, now here's what. When you say that you didn't have the exposure, when you give the analogy of, the compression of time, when it comes to, the same block of time can produce different results. I see it as, there are incidents, and then there are interpretations of the incidents. And when we talk about circumstances, our past, our story, the same story can be used as something to victimize us or to present us as a victim of life. And the same story can be used as a foundation of who you want to be or who you want to create in your life. But then somehow, we are so trained psychologically to see ourselves as a result of something outside in, and the impact of outside in. And it takes a lot of effort to change that story and to see the possibilities available to us, which you say, which were not available. But then those faculties of mind which anybody can have were always available to us, and the choice of who you are being was always available to us. So how are you doing this when you say that you help all these speakers and trainers and coaches change their stories, and how are you replicating that in helping people compress time and create more and better results and a better life for themselves? How do you do that?
Yeah. So it is a journey. And when you understand that everything happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And when you understand that the things that happen for you are your tools, they're now acting as the tools you're going to use in life to build the life that you want. And so when I tell my clients that you literally make up the past, you literally make up the past. So when I meet you, Rajan, and you're telling me about something that happened to you in the past, I wasn't there. So the only frame of reference that I have is what you give me. And you can give me a sad story, or you can give me an empowering story. You can tell me this was the day I became a victim, or this was the day I became a victor, right? Because we get to make it up. Someone who gets a divorce, for one person, it's the worst day in their life. For another person, it's their day of liberation. It's their day of freedom. And so when you begin to understand, and I take my clients through this process, when we go back into the future and we begin to reframe every story and change every story that makes them a victim, we change it into a story that makes them a victor. So my father didn't love me, or my father wasn't in my life, or my mother didn't coddle me, or my mother didn't tell me she loves me. Well, that made you the mother you are today, that makes you intentionally love your children. That makes you the father that you are today. So for me, I can't remember my father ever telling me he loved me. So when I became a father, I've been very intentional about telling my kids every single day, multiple times a day, that I love them. So when I die, there will be no wonder in their mind, did their dad love them? And so when I look at everything, a mentor told me years ago, Will, usually your worst day ends up being your best day, because that's the day you begin to change, and that's the day you begin to transform. And so for me, it's about rewriting history, and all of us have the power to rewrite history. You can rewrite history to favor you. You can rewrite history to empower you. So when I look at my life growing up, Money Challenge, I didn't know that I was going to travel all around the world and be in all different types of situations. But growing up in that type of situation allows me to have empathy when I go into certain countries that may be disadvantaged, that may be impoverished. I can have empathy toward those individuals, because I know what it means to be hungry. I know what it means to go without. I know what it means to not always have the resources that you need. Without that early experience in my life, I may not have empathy. And so it's going back into your life and rewriting every story that's not empowering you. Understanding that it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And so when I realized every situation that I've ever been in, I now use it in some part of my life. I now use it in some part of my work. The most darkest days I've ever experienced, the most darkest events that I've ever experienced, when someone comes to me and says, Dr. Will, you don't understand. Dr. Will, you're Dr. Will. There's no way you can understand what I'm going through. I can tell them with eyes and a heart of truth, I know exactly what you're feeling. I know exactly what you're going through. I know what it means to be homeless. I know what it means to sleep on the floor. I know what it means to not have food every day. I can empathize. And that only came because I rewrote my story to understand that everything that happened to me, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
Wow, that was so deep, so awesome, and so impactful. Now, here's what I would like to understand, Will. There are two things I'm curious to understand. How did you change your relationship with life? And how did you change your relationship with money? How did you do it? Where did it start? And what happened? And what did you realize? And what did you do about it?
Great question. Um, for me, it started with reading. Growing up, I wasn't a very avid reader. And when I was 20 years old, I was taking a college course, and a lady came up to me and she gave me a book, and she said, read this book, read this book. It'll it'll shape your mind. And I began to read this book, and the name of the book is called Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice. And now many of your readers and listeners may be familiar with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but this particular book was called Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, who had an opportunity to work with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. They actually came to him and said Napoleon Hill was working on this book specifically for African Americans. We want you to finish it. So Dr. Kimbrough ended up finishing the manual that Napoleon Hill started. So when I read this book, goes back to exposure. I started to now see and read about people who look like me, that came from similar experiences like me. And what it began to do was break down every excuse that I had. Because up until this time, going back to the story, I told myself, wait a minute, you come from a disadvantaged background. You didn't grow up with your father. You were raised by your single mother. You were raised in America, what they call the worst city in America. You're African American. You're at risk. The system is not in your favor. These were all the stories that I was telling myself. But when I began to read this book, the book began to show me and give me examples of who I could be, what was possible. And once I opened up my mind to that it's possible, even though I didn't know how I was going to do it, I didn't know how I could create this world. I knew it was possible though. And with that possibility, I had an opportunity. With that possibility, I had an opportunity. So I read this book. This book referenced some other books. So I immediately went and got those books, and I started reading those books. And then after it was all said and done, I looked up, and over about a 5 to 6 year period, I had read over 600 books. Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big,
Right.
Acres of Diamond, The Richest Man in Babylon. Any book that talked about personal development, talked about wealth development, talked about the psychology of success. I began to listen to individuals like Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Jim Rohn. I began to listen to these individuals, and they begin to shape my mindset. You know, there's a principle that says faith comes by hearing. Faith comes by hearing. And so whatever you're hearing on a constant level is going to shape how you think. And we know that how we think shapes our actions, and we know our actions are our results. And so the more I begin to read, the more my mind began to shift to the possibility that, wait a minute, I'm not stuck in this old story. I'm not stuck in these circumstances, that these circumstances is not a prison. These circumstances were just a platform. And so now I'm going to use those same circumstances, not as a prison, but as a platform. And I'm going to take each brick and start creating the house that I want to live in. And so after about reading 600 books, my mind was on fire. My passion was on fire to create this life. I now knew that money was not this wicked thing. I now knew that money was not this hard thing to achieve. I understood what money was for, that money was just a tool. Money just provided different opportunities in life. And so my mind began to have a different relationship with money. I grew up thinking that money was something hard to get. That's why we didn't have it, because it was just so hard to get. I grew up and I thought, wait, there's only 2 or 3 ways that you can earn a certain amount, a lot of money. In my community, it was either play sports or be in entertainment. And I said, well, I don't play sports and I'm not an entertainer, so I guess having a lot of money is going to elude me. But then I started reading these books and I found out, wait a minute, you can earn money by using your mind. You can create. You can write books, you can write curriculum, you can be a speaker, you can be literally anything that you want. That I wasn't in a prison of these 2 industries. Once I started opening up myself to that possibility, that's how my mind began to change. That's how my actions begin to change. And once my actions begin to change, I had different results in my life. And once I got the taste of that first result, your mind can't go back, because now you realize you can't deny the result. You can't deny the truth. See, the thing with most people is, we talked about it a little bit earlier about clarity. The reason why most people don't take that step is because in their life, they haven't had the result yet. So it's hard for them to believe. For most people, seeing is believing. But for those of us like you, Ranjan, that do extraordinary things, we understand believing is seeing. We understand we won't see it until we believe it. And once we believe it, we take action. And the action is what produces the result. And so when I realized, oh, wait a minute, if I read more, my mind will expand, my vocabulary will expand, my reach will expand. I read a document over 25 years ago. And this document said, if you read 1 book a month, if you read 1 book a month, you would be further than the average individual. If you read 2 books a month, you would be further than those in your vicinity. If you read 3 books a month, you would be national. If you read 4 books a month, you would be international. I was so raw that I believed it. I believed it. I said, wait a minute, if I read books, it would get me around the world. If I read books, it would get me around the world. And what it did was it began to stretch me. It began to put me into that possibility realm. And so I believed that article, and I started reading books, and I started reading books at a pace that was just, uncanny. And that's literally how I began to shape my mind around money, and how I began to shape my mind around who I could be. I was opened up to the possibility of who I could be.
Brilliant. And this reminds me of something that I believed. I think it was 2002 when I came across this book, Tough Times Never Last, But Tough People Do, by Robert Sculler, I believe. I was working for peanuts. I was working as a receptionist in a small diagnostic center in a remote place, and I didn't have anything, any money, and the only thing that I had from some earlier good days were a few books that I bought, and this book was something that I could buy because it was 80 rupees Indian currency. That's like $1. And I bought this book and I was reading, and this was probably the first ever book I read, and this was about idea management. How can you turn an idea into a product or into a service or into something that will expand your horizons? And I said, I didn't, first of all, like, this was new to me, that one idea, and you can change everything. And I said, why not try this? Why not try this? Why not execute these ideas in the book? And I said, okay, so I keep reading a lot of books, so I have some understanding of a certain subject. So can I become an author? Can I become an author on this subject that I talk about with people? And I said, let's try this. And I said, okay, so by this time next year, I would want to become a published author on this book. And I believed the book, and it's still here. Yeah, see, it's still right here, the same copy that I read in 2002. And this whole book, you will see, is underlined, has these dog ears everywhere. It's completely like, I might have read this book about not less than 20 times. I would go back every day, I would read it, and I would believe it, I would do it. And I think probably the July or August of 2002, I declared that I am going to become a published author on a topic that was not my favorite, but I just wanted to try this idea. And I believed it so much so that I didn't have even money to buy the papers to write my manuscript. And I went to a nearby hotel where they would have this telephone system where they would take these bills, the EPA system, and the bills would be so big that you on the other side it would be blank and you could take them back. So I requested them that, can you give me this waste bundle that you have, which anyways you're going to throw it away. So they gave it away. I brought it back, and I shaved them, and I used the back side of the paper to write the manuscript of this book. And this journey started in August of 2002. Believe you me, March of 2003, that means it was far less than a year, I was a published author. And yes, there was a long story, and at some point I was going around to publishers asking, can you publish my book? Can you publish my book? Can you publish my book? Nobody did it. And finally I decided, okay, come what may, I'm going to have a printed copy of this book in my hand. And the biggest of the sacrifice, my mom sold 2 gold bangles to have my book printed. She said, go out, child. I want you to have this book published. I want you to believe in yourself. And she gave me 2 of her gold bangles, which is very important in Indian culture. And she said, this is not as important as your mission. And I want you to trust yourself, trust life, go. And we sold those bangles, but then we got 1,000 copies of books printed, and they shifted my confidence, they shifted my life, they shifted the whole story of my life, the trajectory of my life. And after that, I wrote another book, Hit Your Restart Button, which was an Amazon #2 bestseller in less than 15 days of its release. And then I wrote another small book, Crack the Creation Code. And I just wrote it just for the joy of writing it. There's 30 pages. And just 2 months ago, I got a call from somebody saying that, Ranjan, I read your book. It made such a profound impact on my life that I wanted to call and speak with you. I said, the purpose is done. Now the divine is working. I didn't know why I wrote the book, but somebody is impacted so much so that he felt like calling me and talking to me I got the purpose. Yes, this is exactly why the book came out. And the how do you Will, coming back to you, your story and my story is about, okay, we understood the power of books, we read books, we understood books, and something shifted. How would you advise somebody or train somebody or coach somebody? Because people are like, oh my god, books, we can't keep reading, we can't, how many years it will take for us to start now, and probably we are already late, and we are already in our 40s and 50s, and if we start now anyways, we are not going to reach that dream and create that dream life. And they relegate themselves to the background, their potential to the background, and say, okay, they accept the reality as if it's something that cannot be changed. So how do you, and many of the speakers, trainers, and coaches also are in this kind of, they're stuck somewhere and in the survival mode on the surface level, instead of tapping into that core potential. How would you suggest them, how would you help them understand changing the relationship with money, especially?
So we're now living in a time when you were just talking about 2002. And when I think about back in 1997 and 1998, where we are today with technology, the advancements of technology and the speed at which we do things in the world right now, I believe that also correlates with the speed in which we can transform our lives today. When we talk about when I talk about reading 600 books and having access to that, I was going to a library to get those books, right? You don't have to do that now. We have these little devices right now, literally wherever you are in the world. If you have a Wi-Fi connection, you'll have access to this interview. Just think about, for those that are listening to us right now, you have the opportunity to listen and have access to two individuals that have probably come from similar situations as you, and we're having a discussion about transforming our life. This medium that we're on, Zoom, wasn't available 20 years ago. Facebook, how me and Ranjan met up, was not available. You literally have access to almost anybody in the world. Like, you can go to Twitter, you can go to Instagram, you can go to TikTok, you can go to Snapchat, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to YouTube, and literally have access to almost anybody in the world. Now, does that mean everybody's going to reply to you? No. But what that does mean, if I reach out to at least 20 individuals, 30 individuals like Rajan, somebody's going to answer the phone. Somebody's going to reply to me. Well, it's the same thing about success, and it's the same thing about money. I'm looking at your office, Rajan, and I'm looking at my office, and we have a similar bookcase. Now, we're miles and miles and miles away, miles and miles and miles away. I've never talked to you before today. You've never talked to me before today. I haven't been in your home. You haven't been in my home. But what does this tell us? The same things that are available to me are available to you, even in India, because it's just wood and it's some paint, right? And so I have a created bookshelf and you have a created bookshelf, and we're thousands of miles apart from each other. But what does that tell us about this world? What does this tell us about this universe? That you and I have been on a collision course to meet. And the way it works, the way this universe works, the more you open yourself. Remember, we said earlier, you don't have to know the how and you don't have to know the what. You're not going to be able to sit down and say, one day I'm going to meet Dr. Will. One day I'm going to meet Rajan. That's not how it works. But what happens is, when you get on that path, we're connected through our coach, Steve Hardison. Steve is this guy from Utah. I'm this guy from California. You're this guy from India. We're not supposed to be connected. We're not supposed to know each other. What has brought us together? It is our energy, and it is our purpose, intention of being a light in the world that what attracts light. When you begin to shape your mind and you begin to have wealthy thoughts, there's a parable that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. When I read that parable, it was so profound to me because what it said was, I become wealthy before I see wealth. I have to become. See, wealth is not about money. Wealth is about who you become that attracts the money. And so long before I became a millionaire, I was a millionaire in my mind. And so what does this mean? Because I told myself from my declaration, one of my declarations is, I am abundance. I am abundance. And so when I look at my declarations in life, I am love. I am happy. I am content. I am creator. I am abundance. I am the #1 personal development coach in the world. I am nothing and I am everything. When I speak this into existence, that means that whatever I need, I can create. Whatever I need to produce, I have enough abundance. I started speaking this long before it was a reality in my life. I started speaking this long before it was a reality, but it's only a reality in my life because I started speaking it. And going back to my past, when I look at my past, it was a reflection of my I am statements. It was a reflection. I had a whole different set of I am statements. I am broke. I am poor. I'm an at-risk kid. I'm the son of a single mother. I still had I am my whole life. We all have I am statements our whole life. I'm not loved. I'm not the favorite. I'm not smart. We all have these I am statements, whether we know it or not, whether we're intentional about it or not. You're speaking I am statements to yourself right now. You're saying maybe to yourself, it can't happen to me. That's a statement that you're saying. Well, you don't know where I am. I'm in this city. I'm in this country. If I was there, one of the most limiting things that people do is to look at their circumstances and to look at their environments and think that those circumstances and those environments will keep them from being the amazing person that they were created to be. But the moment you understand that your start doesn't determine your finish, your start doesn't determine your finish. If you looked at my start, he was born in the worst city in America. His mother was 18 years old. His father was 50 years old. He's surrounded by gangs. He's surrounded by drugs. He's surrounded by all type of calamity. You would look at that young man and you would say, don't put your money on him. He's probably going to end up like all the 100 other kids like him, either in jail or either dead by before he's 18. You wouldn't have bet on me. You wouldn't have bet on me. I wouldn't have been a good bet.
Yes.
But that transformational moment is when I said, wait a minute, my start, I didn't get to choose to be Black. I didn't get to choose to be a male. I didn't get to choose to be born in Compton, California. I didn't get to choose my family. I didn't get to choose my circumstances. But when I became of age, I did get to choose how I was going to live the rest of my life. And every single day, I get to choose that. Am I going to be loved? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to be content? Am I going to be a creator? Am I going to be abundance? Am I going to operate like the number one personal development coach in the world? And so when I get up in the morning, those days that I don't want to get out of bed, I ask myself, with the number one personal development coach in the world, stay in the bed. When I have money challenges, would a person that is abundance worry about money, or would they go and create? What would a person of abundance do? A person of abundance would go create. When my integrity is maybe challenged or my character is challenged and someone wants me to do something unethical, I'm content with who I am. I don't have to scheme anyone. I don't have to trick anyone. I don't have to talk bad about anyone. I don't have to think that if Ranjan loses, I win. I'm content exactly where I am. And so this type of thinking, I know a lot of people, Ranjan, they listen to people like us and they say they have their head in the sand. They're not in touch with reality. They're living this pie in the sky, this hocus pocus, this Disneyland world. They're not in the same, no, we're in the same world as you. We've just decided to think differently about the world we're in. And when you start to think differently, when you start to understand that the world is working for you and not against you, that the moment you decided to change your life, that there's more people that are willing to help you. You know, I tell people this all the time. If you're in your car and your car breaks down and you're on the side of the road and you just sit in your car, no one would probably stop and help you because they don't know why you're on the side of the road. They don't know why you're sitting in your car. But if you get out of your car and you start to push your car to the next exit, people will start to see you struggling to push your car, and more people will start to help you because you started. See, all of us can sit in our house and we can wish and we can hope that life works better. But the moment you start to say, you know what, I'm going to make my life better, I'm going to get this book published, what happened? Before you said anything about your book, your mom never offered to sell her bangles. It wasn't until you went into action. And now you had something to show. You had a result. You said, Mom, this is how far I've gotten. I just need a little help to make it the next step. See, people are always willing to help you on the way. A lot of people are not willing to help you start, but a lot of people are willing to help you finish.
Yes.
And when you understand that all the help you need will happen when you start, it may not be there in the beginning, but on the journey. If you said, man, I don't have a car, I don't have money for the bus, I'm going to start walking to the next city of my opportunity, you have a better chance of getting a ride while you're walking than you do sitting on your couch saying, I don't have a ride there. You got to get into action mode. You got to get into creation mode. You know, our coach, Steve, he talks about we're creators. You got to get into creation mode. I was on the phone with him yesterday and I emailed him or I sent him a message and I say, hey, I got something we should create together. He calls me and we go into creation mode. And now we're working on this beautiful thing that I believe is going to be such an amazing thing. And once it comes to fruition, I know Steve is going to share the story because it's so amazing. But it's because we got into creation mode. We didn't wonder about it. We didn't. And as we began to create, all the things started coming together.
I fully agree with you, Will. You know, it wasn't even at the back of my mind that, you know, I'll be creating this, declaring this, the ultimate experience India. And I was just having the similar interview with Levan Ditchburn. And you know, after the interview, I paused the recording and we were just chatting. And he said, Ranjan, tell me what you really want to create. And I told him a secret desire I have that, you know, I want to meet Steve Hardison, but I don't know if I'll be able to meet him. And he said, okay, so when are you traveling to meet him? I said, I don't know. As of now, I don't have plans and probably I can't do that as of now. He said, why don't you bring Steve to India? I said, what? You want me to bring Steve to India? And I said, yes, you can do that. Why don't you do that? What do you want? How do you think you'll be? I said, of course, I want to create the experience here in India. And he said, like, so what's stopping you? Go, declare, and create it. And even after you have created so many results, there are stages when you're blocked. You again come back to that and you say, okay, maybe I can't do it. And Levan was there. He said, Ranjan, talk to him, call him. And I said, yeah, sure. I'm connected to him and I'll call him one day. He said, there's no one day, call him now. I said, come on, Levan, not now. I'll call him tomorrow. This is midnight. And we were talking at around 12 midnight. And he said, no issues, Ranjan. I'll be here. Call him. I said, Levan, it's okay. Let me try tomorrow and let me see if I can call him on Facebook. He said, do you have his number, personal contact number? I said, no. Okay, check your WhatsApp. I already sent it. I was like, man, this man is not going to leave me. And I just checked and it was there. I said, Ranjan, you are the one who will create it. Go create it. And I said, okay, so I have the number. I'll call him tomorrow. He said, there's no tomorrow, Ranjan. Call him now, else I'm not going to leave. I'm not leaving from here. I'll be there in the call till you call and till you speak with Steve. And I said, man, he's not going to leave me. So I called Steve. The call is now translated into such a big thing. We have a beautiful team. We have a venue booked. We have payment links ready. We have a beautiful website ready. We have tickets started selling. We have a beautiful, amazing, world-class lineup of speakers with us. And I know that this is going to be the best ever Being Summit in India, and it's turning real. At some point, somebody would have asked, like, okay, you have an idea, so what? Let's see when it translates into reality. But now it is so real that people are pouring their support. People are sending messages. People are calling and saying, Ranjan, we are going to help you. We are going to support you. We are going to do everything that the Indian experience needs in the form of help from us. So it took just a few months, and everything is real for everybody. And today we have the London team helping us, Judy helping us, and Alok helping us, and Becky Robbins helping us, and everybody helping us. And this only proves the same thing that I had done earlier. Declare it, go do it, and the results will show up. Depends on how you show up in the moment. And I repeatedly say that the first thing that anybody requires is not that tangible thing. It's that intangible you who is there inside, who's going to decide, as you said, speak it out and create it. And what you speak is going to manifest. Might take a little time, might take different time for different people, but then it's a result that is already created. And how you manifest it depends upon the little choices that you make every single day and every single moment. Will, how did you, okay, this was your story and who you have been and who you're being. But at what point of time you realized that helping people actualize themselves, actualize their potential is something that you would want to do in your life and that you would be passionate about doing? Was it because of the books that you were reading, or what actually inspired you to focus on this one word, humanity and potential, two words, humanity and potential? What happened and what brought you into this field of transformation?
So as I said earlier, I started reading all these books and I started seeing the transformation in my own life. And I was in the military and I just had what Napoleon Hill called this burning desire. Anybody that I talked to, the only thing I wanted to talk to them about was the potential that they had on the inside of them, that they had another being on the inside of them that was wanting to get out. And I realized that most people had just settled in life. I realized that the majority of us are living someone else's idea. Maybe it's our parents' idea, maybe it's our faith's idea, maybe it's society's idea, but many of us have defaulted to live someone else's idea. You know, when you're a little kid, all of your ideas are shaped from your parents, your teachers, your faith, right? And the society and the environment that you grew up in. Geographically speaking, right? When we look at the things that we eat in your country and in my country, they're different because of our location, right? You go to another part of the world, they eat something different based on their location. We have maybe different thoughts, different ideologies, all based upon mostly geographics, right? As a kid, you're mostly going to do what your parents do. Whatever their faith is, you just adopt that faith. But we never stop and investigate for ourselves to say, does this idea work for me? Does this idea fit who I want to be? And so I'm reading these books and my mind is just expanding to, I say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what I want to do. And so one night, I'll never forget it. It's early in the morning. It's about 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm walking outside. And the thought came to me that I could have whatever I wanted in life. It came to me in a voice that I could have whatever I wanted in life. And I kept thinking about that. And I kept thinking about that. Well, how could I get everything I want in life? And I remember Zig Ziglar saying, you can have everything that you want in life if you're willing to help enough other people get what they want in life. And so I went on this internal mission to figure out why I was here. You know, they say the two most important days of your life is the day that you're born and the day that you figure out why. And I went on this internal mission to figure out, why was I born? And you talked about earlier, connecting all the dots of our experiences. And I realized that my assignment in this world for the 80, 90 years that I'm blessed to live and fortunate enough to live on this planet in my little small space of time, my assignment was to help individuals that I come in contact with how to live their best life, how to live their best life. And this was 25 years ago that I started this journey. And so my whole life now is devoted to, one, getting humanity to see each other with eyes of compassion and eyes of civility, that we interact with each other in a loving way, that we realize that we are the same, no matter where we come from, no matter how different we look, no matter the language that we speak, that we're all from the same fabric and that we're all designed to help each other. Like you just said, putting this India event together, look how many people are involved in it. That's what we're designed to do. We're designed to support each other. We're designed to love each other. We're designed for that. And if you just look at a car, your car takes a particular type of gas. If you put the wrong gas in it, it'll mess up the car. That's the same thing that happens to us. We're fueled by love. When you fill us up with hate, when you fill us up with jealousy, when you fill us up with envy, The doctors will tell you that stress and worry and hate, it begins to break down and tear down your organs on the inside, just like that bad gas or that wrong gas would break down an engine in a car. That's what hate does. That's what envy does. That's what jealousy does. That's what happens when we're not civil to each other. It begins to break down our inner fabric. And that's what I see with humanity. And so I've been so passionate about, one, getting us to see with eyes of humility and eyes of civility. And then the second part of that is to help people live their most fabulous, wonderful, created life. I have been blessed with tools from my experience that help me do it. And I realize now that God allowed me to start from what they call the very bottom, because I was going to reach so many people, but there's not a person on this planet, no matter where they are, that can convince me that they can't change their life, that they can't change around. See, if I would have started in the mansion, then I wouldn't have this perspective. But because of where I started, there's nobody can tell me that their situation will keep them from creating their best life. And so that's what happened to me, man.
Yes, Will. This afternoon, I was talking to my dad, and I was sharing the same thing, same opinion with my dad. I and my dad are like friends, and we keep talking about the gain and the gap and what all happened in the past and where we are today. My dad was sharing his stories of childhood and the kind of life they used to live, and he was telling me while having lunch that he had food in his plate, and he remembered something, and he said, Ranjan, this food I used to eat once a week. Rest, the whole week was kind of, food, kind of liquids or something which was not this thing which we have today on the plate. And from there to here, he said, well, I'm so fortunate that I'm having this full plate of food every single meal. And I feel so blessed to be having this food today. And then we were sharing this story about all the circumstances that I went through. I remember, when I was a child, probably around, I think in 4th grade, I asked my dad, I wanted to go along with my friends to buy something. And I asked for 5 rupees, Indian rupees. And I didn't know how much that was, but I knew that it was not much. So I said, my friends were bringing 50 rupees, 100 rupees. And I said, I just need 5 rupees. And he was so frustrated, so angry. He took out his belt literally to hit me. And, I still remember that. Oh my God. 5 rupees could be so dangerous when you ask. And I was like, okay, so 5 rupees is very difficult to earn. Else, why would my dad, who was so nice, so sweet, he would take out his belt to hit me? But that was his condition. That was his situation. And, and then I remember the life, I've been a single father for the last 6 years, and I rose my kids. My daughter is 13, my son is 8, but I've been raising him from when he was 2. And we keep sharing. And I was telling the same thing to my dad. Dad, had we not lost everything, we would have nothing to speak about. We would have nothing to learn. We would have nothing to share, and we would have nothing to create. And he was actually a little apologetic about that. He couldn't save properties for me and big wealth for me. He was a little apologetic. And I said, you know what, Dad? You gave me life. You gave me the perfect opportunity to learn how to live in this world and how to create my own life. I think that's the best education that anybody could have got. And that's what you have gifted me. And probably everybody who was well settled those days today are looking at me. Well, I might not be as rich as them, but I am far more ahead in life, and their children look up to me and they take me as their role model to understand about life. Isn't that a wealth? Isn't that something that I can be proud of? And that's exactly what I chose, that this is what exactly I need to share with the world. And yes, as you said, there is an I am story everywhere, whether you're conscious of it, or you're unconscious of it, but there is an I am story. And I am could be a meaningless affirmation, but I am could be the declaration that you come from. And today, after my journey with Steve Harrison, it's like I'm life. I'm ageless, priceless, and limitless. I'm eternal. I'm love. I'm fun. I'm service. I'm being the beacon of truth, sourcing power from my own being. I'm divine guidance, shaping my life. And I'm guided intuition, creating powerful results on time. And this is how I see. And I'm so excited talking to you today, especially when you talk about your journey of 25 years. I see my actual journey started in 1997, and I visited a friend's place and I saw a series of books available there. I said, what's that books? Well, all look similar. He said, well, those are works of Swami Vivekananda. And can I see? I asked him, can I see them? And I took one book from him. I didn't have money to buy it, so I said, can I borrow this from you? He said, yes, but as long as my dad doesn't notice this. So I asked for one copy every day. Believe you me, this was such a huge book. I would read one book every day, and 9 volumes I completed in 9 days, because his dad wouldn't want to somebody to touch his books. And when I read those books, that's when it's oh my God, years ago, if this monk could travel across the world, impact millions of people, I would love to do that, because we are far ahead in times and in generations, and probably we are more blessed with opportunities of creating far more what people could have done then. And despite the situations, I think we are far more wealthy, we are far more abundant than we talk about, than we realize, and then we would want to share with others. Lessons we are learning every day. This conversation was such a beautiful conversation, and I think this is worth $1 million if somebody digs into this conversation, listens this, and listens about who he can be. Probably that would be the biggest lesson. And many of such videos have helped me, have helped you. And I think this is a beautiful gift that with your help, I created for my audience and your audience and everybody. Thank you so much, Will.
I'm so excited about what you're creating and the ripple effect that it's going to have. I think about the very first time I came to India and how transformative it was for me. When I left India, I knew that anything was possible. When I left India, I knew literally that anything was possible, and it gave me such a confidence. I look at your name on the screen. My friend in India, his name is Ranjan Kumar, and so it reminds me. And when he invited me to come to India, I just thought about this little kid from Compton, California, and he explained to me some of the dreams that he had. And he told me at that time how long he had been dreaming about that dream. And I did the math in my mind, and I said, he had this dream at that time. I would have been about 5 years old. And so here this man is with this dream. Here this kid is across the globe, 5 years old. And everything that's happened for me was getting me and leading me to this moment. If I would have not had my upbringing that I would have had, I would have never joined the military. If I would have never joined the military, I would have never moved to Germany. If I would have never moved to Germany, I would have never started my company. If I would have never started my company, I wouldn't have started working with international companies. If I wouldn't have worked with international companies, I wouldn't have met Kumar. And all of these things to this conversation today, everything has happened for me to be in this moment. And what you're creating and the ripple effect. I remember my first time in India 20 years ago. I still get calls from people that I talked to. They were kids. We worked with an orphanage over there. They were 7, 8 years old, and now they're adults and they have families. And what you're getting ready to create and release over the people of India is so amazing. And when I think about your story, look at that. You're being used to be a modern day Gandhi, to bring a different type of freedom, to bring a different type of liberation, to bring a different type of nourishment. And so now this is the next level in India's liberation. And so I am so excited to know you. I am so excited for everybody that's been a part of it. I know everybody that's a part of it is going to be blessed and is going to be inspired. So I want to thank you, and I bow to you and the creator you are and the individual that you are and the being that you are. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Will. I would love to have you with us on 25th of February 2023 at the Ultimate Experience India, and I invite you personally to this best ever Being Summit in India.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much, Will. Bye-bye.